Hi everyone, welcome to Design Thinking for Entrepreneurs. Grow with Google helps people grow their skills, careers, businesses by offering free digital skills and training tools. I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Alejandra Jimenez and I'm really excited to have you guys all here with me today. We're going to learn the principles of design thinking process and how to apply the process to create innovative solutions for identified problems. Let's get started. We'll begin today's webinar by learning the 5 phases of the design thinking process and how that process can help you to be more effectively building products, services that address the challenges of your target market. Then we will go through each phase of the process and discuss how you can apply those concepts to your own ideas, starting with understanding your audience, identifying their challenges, and then crafting and testing the solutions we have for them. In today's session, we'll be doing a few activities that you'll need to make some notes on. If you prefer to take digital notes, we will show you how to open Google Docs. And if you would like to take handwritten notes, right now is the perfect time to take out some pen and paper. For those taking digital notes, go onto Google Docs, go and open a new browser on your window, type google.com. You need to be signed into your Google account. And then if you don't have a Google account, you can set one up for free. You can choose to get a new Gmail email address, or you can use another email address you have already registered for a Google account. If your business/employer uses Google Workspace, you may have an email address that doesn't look like a Gmail, but it's still a Google account. And if you aren't sure if your work email is Google Workspace or not, check with your team at work. All right, we're going to click the Google Apps icon. Here you'll see Google applications that come with your account. Notice that your most recent used apps appear first. Click More to expand the list. You can get to Gmail, Sheets, and Slides from right here. You can also access your Google Drive where all your projects are stored. Let's take a quick look at Google Drive first. Google Drive allows you to store, access, share files like documents, slideshows, forms, photos, all in one place. Instead of being stored on one computer, your Google Drive files are located in the cloud, a safe space on the internet where you can save important information. After you save something on your Google Drive, you can easily access it from any computer, smartphone, tablets with internet access. Files stored on Google Drive won't get lost even if your computer crashes. And the projects you can create with Google applications are automatically stored onto your Google Drive. You don't have to remember to click save. An example of Google Drive is shown with the GIF on the slide, which displays something clicking on the apps icon and then selecting it to Drive. If you've never created anything with Google Apps before, it will be empty, but after you start creating projects in Google applications, they'll be stored here. From your Google Drive, click New, Google Docs, and a blank document to have your document ready. Remember, as soon as you open this document, it will automatically save in your drive, so there's no need to remember to save your work. And this webinar is also being recorded and will be uploaded onto Chico Start YouTube if you guys do need to go back and refer to anything in this presentation as well. All right, so let's get started. What exactly is design thinking? Well, design thinking is a methodology used by designers to solve complex problems. This approach has been used to brainstorm solutions for societal issues like getting kids to eat healthy school lunches, as well as to help well-established companies redefine their place in a fast-changing industry. You may use design thinking to come up with your first business idea. If you already have a business, you may use this methodology to improve an existing service, product, or even your website. Design thinking isn't just for coming up with a great next product or business. It should be an important part of how you connect with your customers now and in the future. Now, what is technologically and economically feasible that can change depending on your context, okay? What you're able to create as a student over 4 years will likely differ from what you think you'll be able to create if you had access to the amount of data and or computing power that many large tech companies like Google have. Even so, the important thing to keep in mind is that using design thinking will this process will provide you with a framework that will be useful when you don't have a ton of resources available to you, and I'll show you a few examples on that later on in the workshop. To start, let's talk about this methodology and what it's all about. The design thinking process was created by the Stanford University and the company IDEO, and is being successfully used to create small projects and big ones. The methodology includes 5 phases, which we see on the slide here. Empathize. In this phase, you will observe your ideal audience, engage with them, immerse yourself in their challenges and needs. Good design is all about understanding the needs of your user. Define. In the defining phase, you will express the problem of your users in the form of their points of view. Ideate. In the ideation phase, you would transition from identifying problems to finding solution for those problems. Prototype. This phase is all about the ideas getting out of your head and into the real world. And lastly, test. The last phase is all about testing. You can create the next iteration of prototypes, test, learn, and iterate. The continuous refinement is an ongoing process. We talked about design thinking and what it's about and the phases of its methodology. But how is design thinking used in practice? There are products you use every single day that were created with design thinking. Designers and innovators thought about you, the consumer, and the needs or challenges you had around your everyday activities to make the products and services you use and buy better. Look at some of these examples. Many of you are likely watching a lot of on-demand television right now, Hulu, Netflix, from streaming services or even your cable provider. Think about the challenges television watchers had prior to the introduction of on-demand television. You may have had to perfectly time when your favorite show was coming on and be home for it. Later, you might have to set the timer on your VHS tape recorder. Oh my God, VHS is so long ago. But perhaps you grew up with the digital video recorders, but you still had to fast forward through the commercials, which each of these scenarios are pain points and challenges that inventions of on-demand television alleviates. You don't have to be home to watch your favorite program. No accidentally taping over your niece's dance recital with a VHS tape. And in many cases, on-demand services allow you to skip through commercials altogether. You just have to pay like a little upcharge to have no commercials, if I'm not mistaken, for Hulu. In our next example, almost all car owners can likely relate to that challenge you're faced with when your arms are full of groceries, bags, or kids when you're trying to get your car open or the trunk open. If you apply the principles of design thinking process to this scenario, you can probably see where consumers have improvised in other similar scenarios. What might you use to keep the front door open when your hands are full of groceries? Your foot, right? Design thinking was applied to the invention of foot-activated car doors when designers understood the common challenges for car owners and resources available to them in these scenarios. A free foot. Ride and home sharing might be some of those modern solutions to everyday challenges that you might not think about when you imagine the innovation that comes out of design thinking. Ride and home sharing brands were born from challenges we've likely all had. Maybe you're planning a family trip and wanted some space, more space than a hotel room. Perhaps you knew you'd want a kitchen or you'd want more of a local experience, so it made sense to rent a local homeowner's place. The same is true for ride sharing. While we all likely never thought we'd hop in the back seat of someone's car, ride sharing has alleviated some big pain points in transportation. There aren't always taxis available in an area you're in. If you're traveling internationally, ride sharing allows you to book transportation without understanding the local language or even having the local currency. Thinking about other things you can use daily, these inventions you couldn't live without. Many of them were created with design thinking methodology. Let's get started with the first phase of design thinking process, empathize. The first step is the process of establishing empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. If you want to focus on the user, our goal as we begin the design thinking process should be first connect to those users' stories, insights, emotions. We must be able to put ourselves in their shoes, so to speak. What do you mean when we say users? Well, the users in design thinking would be the person or population for which you're hoping to build a solution for. And when identifying the users, you want to be as specific as possible by adding more descriptions, i.e., not just parents, but parents of toddlers or parents in New York City. It is also important to make sure you understand who your user truly is. If you're looking for a solution for, say, college admissions, you may quickly say that your users are high school graduates, but when you stop thinking about it, the user is actually the parent of high school graduates. This practice helps you narrow down the characteristics of your potential audience so you can really dive into those core issues that they may face. Think about the way you may describe your user or target audience in the past. Oftentimes, we start with the demographic information such as gender, age, or nationality. Sometimes we only consider one characteristics of an individual, such as parent or working professional. When it comes to your user, you want to be as specific as possible, so you really understand that audience and what makes them tick. When you dig deep on their needs, it's easier to create a solution for them that they will jump on the chance to benefit from. Let's look at some examples. You may say your target audience is women of color, but this is a huge group of people with an endless number of unique interests or needs. Maybe you're looking to create an all-natural hair care line specifically for women of color. A more targeted explanation of your users would be women of color looking for products without added chemicals or toxins, or even women of color who need to use natural products due to health or allergy concerns. You may have a handful of specific audience, but these details will help you to better market to them. Another example could be parents, but the parents here, you are likely already know there's a huge difference between parenting a newborn and a teenager. Also, as a designer, what problem are you looking to solve for parents? Maybe you offer a nanny service, your audience is parents of young children not yet in school or parents who work in demanding jobs. Maybe you market your products or service to seniors over the age of 70. But can you get more specific? Let's say your product or service for seniors who live alone. That will refine your marketing efforts to seniors over 70 in single-member household. Lastly, let's look at Latinx college student as a potential user group. Latinx students make up a large group, but maybe you're offering temporary housing to college students. So instead of your focus or your efforts, instead of putting your focus or your efforts on Latinx students or their parents seeking temporary housing near universities in a specific geographic location, now, depending on your business or idea, you might be thinking, my user can be from all different walks of life and they don't really fall into any one demographic. This could be true if, say, you're an online counselor or you own a shoe repair business. In this case, think about what makes your audience unique. What qualities or interests do your users have that would draw them into your product or service versus someone else's? Find that niche and make it unique to you. For example, maybe your shoe repair business offers 24-hour turnaround for repairs. Your ideal users might include business travelers or people with an important event coming up. If you already have a business and you're unsure who your users might be, you can use tools like Google Analytics to learn more about your audience. All right, the second phase in design thinking process is to define the problem statements. Now that we have a clearer image of who your users are, we want to operationalize the problem. To do so, let's focus on one core problem from our list of challenges that we just created for our users. This core problem can be a synthesis of the list or one that just stands out of most. Using this core problem, we will be creating a problem statement. What's a problem statement? And why do we need it? Well, the problem statement will be a statement that clearly organizes 1, the characteristics of the user, 2, the user's needs or the core problem that you just identified, and 3, the insight into why the user is experiencing this need. Developing a problem statement is critical in the design thinking process. Let's look at a few examples. Now, this is an example of a completed problem statement. Here we have our user, Sam, who is a busy manager. His need or core problem is that he needs a way to integrate healthy eating habits. The reason why he has this need or the insight stems from a desire to not feel like he's on a diet. This problem statement is telling us that we need to help Sam to find some solutions that will integrate healthy eating habits for Sam without making him feel like he's on a diet, which is pretty clear. It can be tempting to try to insert a solution during the problem statement stage of the design thinking process. But let's try to rein back to the urge until the ideation stage. Here we're pulling from our empathy stage to hone in on one true value of our user to tap into their true need. I want to share an important tip with you guys. I always tell people to build the problem statement from the bottom up. The more insight you have in the emotions that are driving the need, the better positioned you are into the next step, ideating. So instead of Sam needs to learn about nutrition to get a better eating experience during lunch. Yes, we all know we should eat better, but why do so many diets fail? There's a lot of emotion and frustration in that feeling that you have to give up all the yummy foods that you love. We know we need to eat better, but we don't want to, and we don't want to feel like we are on a diet. So let's try. Sam is a busy manager who needs a healthy way to integrate healthy eating habits into his daily life because he doesn't want to feel like he's on a diet. All right, let's go on to the third phase, ideating. So now that we've empathized with our chosen user, analyze and synthesize those observations to define the problem using a problem statement, it's time to ideate. Or in other words, create ideas. This is a phrase where we think about all the possible solutions that come to our mind. The beauty of this process is that we can let go of our mind and just go wild with ideas. Let's go back to a few of our examples where we were discussing different user groups. First, we mentioned targeting women of color for natural hair products. Now, you might already have in mind what types of products or services you might want to offer your users, but in the ideating phase, It's all about considering all the different ways in which you can offer them a solution to their challenges. Your first thought might be create an all natural hair care line for women of color. But on the other hand, you may consider not even offering a product to this user group and instead alleviate their challenge with finding all natural hair care products through a database or app you created. Additionally, one of your ideas might be to open an actual salon where you can only use all natural hair products. One of our other examples of a potential user group included Latinx students looking for temporary housing. The first idea that comes to mind might be creating an online roommate matching service for Latinx students specifically. If you like to consider going the product route for this group, you may consider investing in buildings that you can furnish and offer as temporary rentals. Now, the fun part of ideating is that we can really think outside the box. What if these students didn't need temporary housing because you created online learning programs for them to get college credit from their home? You see how the ideation phase can open your mind to new and different ways of solving problems for your target audience? All right, now it's prototype time. Now, how do we know if the solutions we outlined in the last exercise would work? We prototype. Prototypes are inexpensive, scaled-down versions of the solution created in the previous ideation stage. As you build prototypes one by one, they are either accepted, improved, or re-examined. And worse, sometimes they get rejected, based on the user experience. Remember, this is just an experimental stage. You are trying to create the workable product here just yet, okay? We have more time for that. But this step is still crucial as you are testing your ideas to gain as much feedback from your potential user as possible. Through the prototype process, you'll gain a better understanding of the constraints inherited within the product/feature, the problems you may not have foreseen, and you'll also have more informed perspective of how real world users would react to and feel about the final product while they interact with the prototype. Once you've collected enough data from the prototyping stage, it's time to create the MVP, or the minimum viable product. This is what we call the simplest version of the workable product that is developed with the core features that will satisfy early adopters, but also provide the lowest risk for investors. That means the MVP should be cost efficient and quick to develop while still providing basic functions that you've decided on. And you'll have an idea of what early adopters, or what we call the first users that are eager to try something new, we will be looking for thanks to the prototyping stage. So, let's say your goal was to create a vehicle that could take you from point A to point B. In the top example, there are 5 boxes that represent each iteration of a prototype. The first iteration contains the image of a wheel. The second, 4 wheels with 2 axles. The third image is merely of the base of a vehicle. And the fourth is a built-out vehicle with no steering wheels, and the last prototype is a fully built-out functioning vehicle. Now, there isn't much you can do with just a wheel or 2, even with an axle or the body of a car, without a wheel or engine, so that the only viable product is the fully functioning vehicle with all the bells and whistles. In the bottom example, we focus on the MVP that solves the problem of your audience in the simplest way, getting from point A to point B. The first image is a skateboard, which we know will get you from point A to point B. Now, for each step in the prototyping process, you may make iterations to the initial product as you get feedback on what works and what doesn't. In the second iteration here, you may decide to change up the product slightly and make it a scooter. Or, as you see in the third iteration, a bicycle. But perhaps your audience wants more speed. So you end up with a motorcycle or a vehicle, but only after taking these MVPs through the prototyping phase to know what works and what doesn't for your audience. Now, your minimum viable product is not your end goal. It's one of many steps that will take you to your final established product. But to get to that point, you'll do what I'm sure sounded familiar. Iterate and iterate again and again. Keep testing your products or service with your user base and follow the feedback. Maybe that leads you to more changes and enhancement. Maybe it takes you backwards to remove certain features altogether. What's important here is that you are staying flexible and listening to the needs of your user base to create the best and most well-received version of your product or service. Last but certainly not least is the testing phase. This is the final step of the design thinking process. We won't be practicing this phase together, but if you were to implement the design thinking process in real life, you would definitely want to test out your solution, evaluate it, and depending on how it goes, you may not have to go back and repeat the other phases. Testing is an iterative phase. What does that mean? It means you will continue to go back and make changes, tweak features, and in some cases, you may even decide to scrap the solution for a different one you identified during the prototyping phase. And now that you've learned the different phases of the design thinking process, you might be wondering, how can you use the design thinking to make a new idea more successful, or take an existing business or product and tailor it to the changing needs of your customer, especially in today's climate? Let's look at another example. Sunrise Coffee. Juani Romero, a former barista, opened her first coffee shop on the first day of the Great Recession of 2009. She now owns 3 cafes. While Juani was initially hesitant to tackle new digital tools, her online presence became critical and important when the COVID pandemic came to her city of Las Vegas. She needed to know a way to keep her company solvent for the coffee shops, its employees, and the community. She had to look at the changing needs for her employees and customers. This time also brought new importance to supporting her customers and those first responders who work was critical to the health of the community. She took her business almost entirely digital by selling her sustainably sourced beans online. She also added a web function that allowed visitors to donate coffee to first responders and healthcare workers, and she would kick in 2 additional bags for each donation. She was amazed at the response. Customers started flocking in droves and buying her coffee online. The media took it really well. That sense of community and desire to help others in a time of need was the importance to Juani and her customers. She redesigned her business to support that need by leveraging new tools to deliver a different type of product and service to her audience. And that concludes the 5th and final stage of design thinking process. Let's recap the 5 stages really quick. Empathize, where we step into the shoes of our users base to identify their challenges. Define, where we express the core problems in the form of point of views. Ideate, where we transition from identifying the problems to brainstorming as many solutions as possible. And prototype, where we brought the ideas out of our heads and into the real world. And finally, the testing stage, which takes us to the next iteration of prototypes to improve our minimum viable products by testing, learning, and iterating again and again. Give yourselves a pat on the back for following along. We had a real good session. And I just wanted to remind you guys that Grow with Google is an initiative to help people prepare for work, find jobs, and grow their businesses. Thank you guys for watching and attending today. The recording of this webinar will be posted to Chico Start's YouTube if you guys want to refer back. And again, thank you guys for hopping on, and we hope to see you at the next one. Have a great rest of your guys' day.